Welcome to Not So PG. I'm Brooke and my pronouns are she and her.
I'm Matty Mills, my pronouns are he and him. And before we get started, we'd like to acknowledge the custodians of the land on which we record. And for me, that's the Gadigal People of the Eora Nation.
And for me, I'm out in Darwin on Larrakia country. So let's get into it, Matty.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we've got a couple of guests on, two of my favourite people. But before that, I thought maybe we should ask or answer actually some frequently asked questions. Now, I put up a little story on my social media the other day about questions about the referendums. Like, no question is a dumb question. And I had a pretty good response from people. And you know what? All the questions were quite respectful but intriguing. So, Maddie, one of the questions was, how can allies best support mob if we do get a no majority?
Yeah, I think if we get a no majority and the decision is no, that we won't get a voice to Parliament and we won't be recognised in the Constitution, I think that if you are an ally to the First Nations community, it is important to check in with your First Nations friends, have a conversation, show your support, whether it's sending a text, whether it's having a conversation, catching up, and just making sure that your, First Nations friends or people in your life know that you care and that you support, First Nations people and the conversation that's happening around the voice. It's difficult because people can be an ally and they can still vote no, Yeah. I think that there's a nuance to it. So I think if you're, a staunch ally and you're supporting the voice referendum, just make sure that you check in with your blackfellow friends and let them know that they are important and respected and loved and they do matter and that their voice is heard even though the outcome wasn't what they wanted. But you know what? We're going to get a yes.
And I think also remember that 80% of First Nations people are really supportive of the voice. Like, know, there's a few that obviously are voting no, but majority, we're really supportive of this because it's important to us. I think and it should be important to the Australian nation. Obviously, it's an invitation, which we'll get into much later in the episode. But we value our nation. We value Australia, or so-called Australia. So we want this to be all-inclusive country for everyone. So being an ally is really important. I mean, we could definitely unpack that on another episode where we talk about what makes a good ally, what is allyship, what is performative allyship, all of those things in another episode, I think. But
Yeah, I mean, I'm nervous that this is the last episode before the referendum. So if you are listening to this episode, we are going to invite some incredible guests on to speak, as Brooke mentioned, about all the work that they've been doing to support the youth dialogue around the Uluru Statement from the Hart, and it will be invaluable information. So keep your ears perked up and take a listen.
Yeah, and we'll answer some of those questions that you guys flung to us. So enjoy.
Well, we are really excited. We are only a week away from a very important moment in our country's history and a major milestone for our people. And we wanted to bring people into the conversation who have been doing a lot of work behind the scenes and a lot of important work to be able to get this thing hopefully across the line on October 14th. We have the incredible Bridget Cama, who is the co-chair alongside Allira Davis of the Uluru Youth Dialogue. And they both work closely to provide a national platform for First Nations youth voices to be heard in the Uluru movement and in First Nations affairs. And am I right to say that this is the only youth campaign for the Yes vote?
That is correct, yes. We started in 2019, so that's a bit of a flex for our campaign.
I love it. Well, welcome to the pod. We are really excited to have you both on, and we are honoured to have you both on. We both respect and appreciate all the work you've done, and I know that Brooke has worked on the Youth Dialogue as well and been a part of this movement. Take us back to the start and how this youth campaign for the Yes vote came about and why you think it's so important.
Yeah, so we're thank you for having us too. We're absolutely privileged to come on here. Oh, did you want to say something, Brooke?
Oh my God, do an introduction. Like, don't be shamed.
Yes.
Like, I'm like, this Matty starts with the intro. It was so like formal. I was like, bros, these are our sisters.
Well,
No, I love it. He went into full like presenter mode. I was like, I love this for you. But I've known Bridget and Allira since 2019 when you guys invited me over to the Youth Dialogue, which was actually such an honor and such a privilege to be a part of, especially because it was the first and it's, had done so well. So like in the years that I've known to be a part of it. And your voices are just so important. And I think that's probably why I wanted to, we wanted to invite you guys on the podcast because we think your voices in the community are so valued and so important. And I think coming also, there's so much noise at the moment and I feel like we need to hear from our young people as well. And, I would say that we're all pretty young because, I know, Bridget, you're a mum, but still young at heart, obviously, still, part of the Youth Dialogue. So I feel like regardless, of where we are at in our lives, I feel like everyone that's here today, I feel like we're all very passionate about similar things. But I feel like my interest is to know, I guess, some more of the work that you guys are doing and I guess what we see in the future. And so, I'm so glad that you guys have come on the podcast. But I want you to do an introduction. Like, tell us where you're from, who's your mob, where do you live?
Okay, cool. I'll start. My name is Eora Davis, proud Cobble Coleman from the Eora Nation, southwest Queensland, North Queensland. I grew up in Beenleigh is considered Logan, so proud Logan Bogan there, and moved down to Canberra for about 5 years around 2016. So when the dialogue process was happening, so when the Uluru statement process was happening, I moved down to Canberra and then worked in the private and public sector to, I guess, upskill. I don't really know where I want to take my career, but I know that I wanted to do something in Indigenous advocacy. So I was volunteering for my role now that I'm full-time on for about 4 years, so the Uluru Youth Dialogue, and being the co-chair alongside with B. And then now I'm on the job full-time as a youth manager. So, I've been in the role now for about, I think, 2 years, but been really kind of committed to this journey for about 6 or 7 years. So that's a bit about me. I'm based in on Yugambeh country in Logan. We're on Turrbal Yagara country. So like to acknowledge those people and the ancestors that have walked before us. But yeah, that's a bit about me at the moment, and obviously 5 days to go till the referendum. So yeah, but I'll let B introduce herself.
My name is Bridget, proud Wiradjuri and Indigenous Fijian woman. My connections on my mum's side are to the Kudgegong River just outside of Mudgee and Wellington, where my pop was born. But I was born and raised in Lithgow and spent all of my childhood years, primary and high school years in Lithgow. So that's kind of my sitting place. But in 2014, I decided I wanted to pursue a law degree. So I had to move off country, move down to Gadigal country, and that's where I'm currently living. I've been living on Gadigal country for nearly 10 years, which seems pretty crazy. But yeah, I had to move off country and, being a young person, young Aboriginal woman, leaving my family and support behind in Lithgow and moving, hours away from home was a big shift. And I know that a lot of our mob, a lot of us are the first in our immediate families to, pursue that tertiary education as well, face similar challenges and have to move away from home and our support systems and our families and our friends to do that. But we also value what education can do for our mob as well. So yeah, I've been living there for now 10 years, have a law background. I was drawn to pursue a law degree because for a long time I thought the law was kind of black and white rules that were imposed on our people, particularly in our communities. But as I came to learn more about it, I realised that it's actually something that's made to change, and that it should change, but also that the law can affect individual people and groups of people differently. And everything started to fall in place for me in terms of my lived experience and what my communities face and how the law plays a part in that. So that's what drew me to law, to want to be able to contribute to positive change, particularly structural reform. And I'm very lucky to have come across Professor Megan Davis in my law degree, and I can't tell you the amount of times that I referenced her in many of my university essays, because like that is just inspiring to see a Black woman who was raised, in a way that's very similar to how a lot of us were raised, to see her being able to be at the forefront of something as significant as this. That's really what drew me to the work of the Uluru Statement from the Heart. And as a young person, a young Aboriginal person, I feel very privileged to be able to do this at such an early stage of my career as well. But this isn't about me as an individual. It's not about any of us as individuals. It's bigger than us. And that's why the work is the most challenging work that I've ever done in my life, but it is absolutely the most rewarding.
Wow.
I agree. And I think Megan Davis, having the pleasure to meet her and you guys at that first youth dialogue, changed a lot how I saw things in my life as well, especially within law. And, we have our law, LORE, and then the law, LAW, exists in Western society. But I think people don't know that there's an emergence of two. And I think, that it's, like you said, it's meant to be changed. Can I ask a question? And I guess it's a personal question. Maybe Matty feels the same way. How are you feeling about being 5 days out at the moment?
I am. I'm really nervous. Sorry, I didn't mean to swear.
You can swear.
I don't know if I can swear.
swear.
It's a face because, like,
the podcast is about.
I am so freaking nervous. I'm excited, but I think I'm more. And if I get emotional, it's because we haven't actually had this time to actually think about it properly. But I think it's more of the day after that is affecting us a little bit, because it's like, if we go the other way, then we just stick into the status quo. Like, our people still have to suffer. Our people still have to deal with the daily injustices. And that's what we're doing here today in Brisbane and this week before the referendum, is just to like try and debunk all the misinformation out there and tell that like people that Jacinta Price is not the only fucking like Aboriginal out there who like doesn't like disagrees. Like, we get that, but there's like over majority 80% of First Nations people agree with this and support the voice. And we need this. We need a change in our lifetime, and it's so we can't emphasize that enough. Like, we're trying to just debunk the misinformation, and the voice isn't divisive. Like, we're just trying to get out there and make a change and make substantial change and structural reform with our community. So like, I'm more nervous at the fact that I hope Australians come together for a common goal and a common justice, but I'm more nervous about what's going to happen the day after and if we go the other way, which, we've been very hopeful so far, but a lot of, I guess, the media hasn't been on our side too. And that's just really honest. Like, I think they just want to see, the drama and like go the other way, and that's what it is. But
that's the role of a opposing party, right? Is to push back and to oppose what, the thing. Like, it's not always going to be like all kumbaya and, people are going to agree every time. And this has happened in previous law amendment and change and, systems. Like, there's always going to be an opposing party. And I think it just feels like they're really, really loud at the moment. And I feel like that's what's making us feel so uneasy, and I feel like very nervous. And I guess, and don't be afraid to also feel the emotion, because I put up a little post today, which I was feeling it, I'm off country, I'm out of home, I'm away from my home. I had to do a postal vote, which didn't feel right for me. Like, I would have loved to be at home and, and making sure that I'm I feel like I'm doing what I should be doing. And it's not like I'm not, but I just felt like just sealing that like postal vote last week, I was like so nervous. Like I was like, oh my God, am I doing it right? Like I'm freaking out. But like I was like, making sure, because it's so important. It's not just like sealing an envelope for me and just like putting it in the post box. Like that is in itself is just so weighted. And writing yes on that piece of paper is like, I just don't understand why people don't. I don't understand why people would want to say no in that box in some way. Like I know I'm a bit naive in some degree, but obviously we've got so much more of a connection to why this isn't so important to us. Maddie, do you want to ask Allira and Bridge any questions? I feel like I've taken
absolutely.
over.
No. I'm just listening. I'm really like just in the convo. But I do want to ask you a question because you've been doing the work on the ground for years now, and it must get exhausting at some point when you're trying to push what you believe in so much. What are the waves of emotion been like since back in 2016 till now? I know that there have been waves of movement, and there's sometimes it feels like the yes is the majority party, and then sometimes the extreme no's are very loud and it makes you probably feel disheartened. But what has it been like since the start till now? Can you paint a picture of what this process has been like for both of you?
I think it absolutely is a journey. When we met for the first time at the beginning of 2019, it was at one of those meetings that continued happening with mob after the Uluru Statement from the Heart was issued. And we felt that young people are a key part of this movement. And the reforms that the Uluru Statement calls for, starting with a constitutionally enshrined voice to Parliament. We knew then that we wanted to bring young First Nations people from across the country together. And when we got into that room on the first day, we were just so overwhelmed. And I don't know if you remember it, Brooke, but like the individual people in that room put together was like powerful. And that's when Allira and I knew that we had to do something with what was there. Like we had a responsibility to do something and take this forward. So that's where the Uluru Youth Dialogue started. At that time, we had a government and a Prime Minister who didn't want a bar of us, but that didn't deter us. And that's what this campaign has been. Every time we get told no, we keep pushing ahead because we believe in the mandate of the Uluru Statement and what it can achieve for First Nations people, but for the entire country. Like there's so much to benefit from the reforms of the Uluru Statement from the Heart. So we kept pushing ahead. We kept having the conversations with everyday Australians and kept doing the work. The education work really is what it was about. So we would be out on the ground doing information stalls at footy carnivals and, local festivals and cultural events and just having the conversation with people. And then an election came around and we thought we'd get a government who was supportive of the Uluru Statement, and the polls weren't right. And a lot of our old people, I remember the conversation when a lot of our older people who were a part of the whole movement said, it's too much. I thought this was our opportunity and it's still off the table because we continued having a government that didn't want to bar of us. And then another election came around and we did have a change of government. And the first thing that was said in Prime Minister Anthony Albanese's victory speech was that he supports the Uluru Statement in full. And that was a big moment. I think it was very emotional. Everyone was at their own homes. But we had a group text going.
I was actually at a friend's party.
Well, Allira wasn't at home.
I was a bit charged. I was like, oh my God. It was so amazing. It's so funny though.
Is this real?
Yeah, we were like, I think the word is like, it was surreal. Yeah. And then like the hard work like really began. And we kind of just, because obviously this is the first time I feel like in our nation's history that, First Nations issues are at the forefront. Like the Prime Minister announced it, that he fully supports the mandate of the Uluru Statement from the Heart. And, why it's getting, the conversations are continuing is because it's a First Nations issue. I know that on a previous panel that I was on with Annie Bronwyn Fredericks, who works at University of Queensland, she said that no other constitutional amendment has this much traction or, division or kind of, I guess, issue with the more detail that's going to go into the Constitution. Like no other constitutional amendment has that. So, and we've been to I think 44 referendums and only 8 have succeeded, and hopefully 9 will go up one.
Yes. Manifesting that.
Yeah, sorry, B.
No, that's all right. But I think, you're right. That's when we knew that it was just going to go into overdrive, and that we had to get it done. So we kicked into then campaign mode, which is unusual for us from the Uluru Dialogue perspective, because none of us are professional campaigners. From different backgrounds. I came straight out of university, interested in law and wanting to be able to contribute to that, but also passionate about young people and, having young people's voices at the table, and then meeting Allira, who has a completely different background in terms of, professional career-wise. And then you've got Auntie Pat Anderson, who's spent her entire life advocating for health and for the gap to be closed. And, she's approaching 80 now, which is her entire life she's spent dedicated to improving the lives of our mob. And now she's working on this.
She's an amazing woman. I love Auntie Pat.
She really is. She's so cute.
Yeah. I had the privilege of being on a symposium, like a women's leadership one, and she spoke before me, and I honestly just couldn't even talk afterwards. I was like, what am I going to say that is going to have any type of impact with what Auntie Pat has just said? She's just she should be just getting applauded, and then we should just end it now. And I still had to talk afterwards, and I was just like, oh God. But I was really lucky, I guess, the contrast of listening to Auntie Pat is because she's got so much experience and such a wealth of knowledge that you sit and you're just in awe of her. And, and she's been doing it for so long and so passionate. And I just also hope that, we can all look at this sort of moment and in how many years we're all still, we're all the Auntie Pats, we're doing still that work and still working. And hopefully, some major change has happened. There's one part of, obviously, were you guys a part of that Uluru moment, I guess, the gathering in 2017?
No, I mean, I attended the Brisbane Dialogue, but at the time I think I was working in government, so I don't think I would have been able to go anyway. But I think since then we've just kind of, committed to that mandate, and we're cheering from a side, which they say one of the kind of big misinformation out there is that I wasn't involved in the dialogues. I should have had a say, but I was involved in the Brisbane one, but I didn't go to the Constitutional Convention. So, but I still support and trust our leaders and trust the mandate of what we're trying to achieve in our country. So,
sorry, and I hope you don't think that I was asking for that reason. It was more like one of my favorite parts of the Uluru Statement is when I think it's when our children or when our youth have destiny over their
when we have power over our destinies, our children will flourish.
Yeah, and they'll learn to walk in two worlds, and their culture will be a gift to them. I don't know if all 4 of us can both sit here and absorb that, and the power of that is that we've all worked off country, we've all gone and gotten education, and we've all tried to learn to work and within the system and within the Western society, and we all believe that our gift is our culture is such a gift to us. We're all so passionate about it.
I love the fact that you mob are speaking, you are the voice of the voice in terms of the community that you're representing and speaking on behalf of. When you say youth, it's an interesting one for me because I think to myself, I'm like, young people, unfortunately, don't get to have, well, I mean, people who are under 18 don't get to have a say in this vote. And I feel like that demographic for us would be a really powerful demographic to have on board. And I think that, unfortunately, they're the future of this country. And yet they don't get to have a say. Is it your vision to bring the voices of those who don't get to write yes or no to the forefront because you do want to represent a better future for Australia?
I think we know that whatever the outcome of this referendum will be, it's going to impact young people the most. And especially those under 18. And, you know, we talk about the impact that we'll have on, you know, my 3-year-old son, my 12-year-old sister, and Allira's little brothers and sisters too. And that's why we are so passionate about this as well, because we know that it will result in the legacy that we leave for them. Whether that's they will continue to grow up and be faced with the statistics that come out every year in the Closing the Gap report, or whether they will have the same opportunities as every other Aussie kid out there. That is literally what this is about. And so, you know, I've recently talked about this, that we want the same for our kids as every other mother or parent wants for their kids. We want them to be healthy and happy kids and live healthy, happy lives and have the same opportunity. So I don't want to leave the same question unanswered to our younger ones, especially those who are going to be voting in this referendum, because they'll still be having to deal with this in their lifetime. I'm really anxious about waking up the next day after referendum, because there is so much on the line. It's literally our people's lives on the line. And I'm really worried that a no result will give permission for us as a country to, at best, remain the same and say what currently happens is acceptable in this country. But at worst, we go backwards. And I'm worried that a no vote will give permission for the racism that's currently being hurled around to be acceptable because a no vote happens. Or that the issues that we face are seen as acceptable because a no result happens. That is my fear of, you know, what is on the line here.
I think even so too, like, racism is going to exist regardless of what the vote is. Obviously we went yes. But I think, you know, like the Uluru statement says, you know, we want, you know, our children are our hope for the future. And, you know, our children should flourish and will flourish. So, but that's what the voice is all about. It's giving the voice to the voiceless. It's giving the voice to the people on the ground that experience these daily injustices or this forceful implementation of these policies. And, you know, we are, our population, half of our Indigenous population is taken up by young people from the age, I think it's from like 30 under. So, I mean, it's super important and super significant for us to be at the table. And that's what one of the design principles are, is including gender balance in youth, because our young people are affected by the policies that are, you know, implemented and will continue to do that. So when we're making a change and we're standing up for something we believe in, and I think I'm really proud of us because we've stood strong and regardless of, you know, all the kind of misinformation out there and, you know, just people saying, oh no, I'm kind of on the fence, I don't know yet. There's not enough detail, blah, blah, blah. But we're voting on a principle. We're voting on if you think we deserve a voice in our country. And if the day after you don't think our children deserve a voice in our country, then, you know, what kind of country are we? We need to deal with the unfinished business, and that's what we're going to deal with, and that's what we are dealing with. We have a Prime Minister who has come to the table and said, hey, this is going to be this is going to be a forefront issue right now of Australia's history and nationhood. What do you want to do? What do you want Australia to look like after October 14th? And that's the reality of it. Like, You can't escape that.
Mm-hmm. And I think whether we get a yes or a no, I'm sure that your work and the work that you're doing will continue to happen, but the challenges will be something that changes. What does it look like for you both if we get a yes or a no? What is the future going to look like for the work that you're doing?
Putting it really plainly, yes means that we can continue to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Set up the voice, and the government has committed to a consultation process with First Nations communities to inform what that legislation looks like, as well as the 8 key design principles that Allira just referred to. We move forward, and then we set up the voice, and the voice makes representations and provides advice after consulting with our communities about what issues we want to address and what solutions we want to put forward, because we know our communities best. That's what yes delivers us. We start to address the gap that exists. We start to address the disadvantage that exists in our communities because we have the answers to those challenges that our communities face. And why shouldn't First Nations people have a say on matters that relate to us? It's done right across the world in countries that have similar histories to ours, where they recognise Indigenous peoples in their founding document, whether that be a constitution or something else. And there's a mechanism in place that gives Indigenous peoples of that country a say on matters that affect them when politicians make decisions that affect their lives. But Australia hasn't taken that next step. So a yes delivers us the ability to move forward as a nation, to begin to heal as a nation, because we start to address the unfinished business. No delivers us nowhere.
I don't want to think of that.
And we don't think about it because we're so focused on
yes,
we are successful. But no delivers us nowhere. I think that's the simple.
We stay in the status quo.
Yeah, and
no
I think what does come next after that? If this country can't say yes to including us in our country and giving us a say, then what can we do? If our country can't even say yes to that, then what will they say yes to?
Yeah, it definitely is something that I think about often, and I think about symbolically what that does to the hearts and minds of those outside of our community, and what it portrays as like unimportant. Our community is unimportant to this country. Our culture is unimportant. The history of what we hold as people is unimportant, and the lens of importance just shifts from us. And that's something that I'm really worried about if it wasn't to go through. I think about what it does to the psyche of Australia when it comes to First Nations rights and us rewriting, the wrongs that have really happened. Well, Australia rewriting the wrongs that have happened. I'm worried about what it does to the psyche of the rest of the country, and that to me is concerning at the least.
Yeah.
I agree. I have been reading up on just some sort of just some pivotal moments that we've had, obviously, like the 1967 referendum and just like all these moments in history. And one person that I came across was Neville Bonner. He was one of the first parliamentarians, or one of the first Aboriginal people to go into politics. And it just, and this, obviously the 1967 referendum wasn't that long ago, like when we think about it. And I always sort of use that as reference. And Maddie and I have spoken on our previous episode about the importance of that time. And I think I just found like this quote from him, and he was in chamber. He was giving a speech basically to all these politicians, and he wasn't just like tiptoeing around the issue. He was literally looking these people in the face and just saying, "How dare you?" You told my people that your system was best. We have come to believe that. And I don't know why, but it just feels the weight. The words of the way he used in this speech just felt really weighted for me, because that was in, I think, like 1998 or something, or 84 maybe. And he was still arguing, and he was doing, doing what the work that we're doing at the moment, being like, we're still fighting this fight. Like, it feels like a fight, kind of, obviously a battle, and it feels like, and we're just getting wounded and we're getting scarred, and we still get back up and we're continuing. And this just feels like, again, like one of those moments where it's like we're still putting that reliance in the government and just trusting that Australia has opened that invitation, like has welcomed that invitation that we've offered them with kindness and compassion, as always, as we do as people. But yeah, I mean, he was, for me, like, I feel like that moment, and I think in like previous speeches that he's done, he wrote, Bonner believed that interests of Indigenous Australians would best be advanced by working within the existing political institutions. Yeah, we get it. We're working within a Western world. We understand that. Like, they have this law, they have establishment. But he said, but by negotiation and consultation, not confrontation. And I think that really sits with me really powerful, because, if this is a yes vote, this is a really great and an amazing opportunity for us then to be like, okay, these are the matters that affect Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and they're coming from the voice of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. They know what's best for them. Stop making decisions on behalf of us and make thinking that but you don't know. We're telling you don't know. That's why we're the most incarcerated race. We're the most overrepresented in our prisons and all that sort of, and the leading youth rate of our young kids suiciding is fucked. Like, we're telling you. And again, I agree with you, Bridget, with the future of our young people. Obviously, you're a mum. You now look at your young little baby and you're like, holy shit, you're going to grow up in this world. And you're like, I want to protect you and nurture you so much. Like, I think I have a dog and I still think like that. But like, when I actually physically have children, they're the ones the futures that I'm thinking of. Like, when I sit and I'm in a room full of 11-year-old girls who are, speaking about how they see themselves in this world, it's not all like rainbows and lollipops as these little white girls do. Sorry, not to make it a race issue, but it's like, they have an identity and a really like our cultural identity is just so important. I think these young kids like are still trying to understand that in this world. We're a world that doesn't accept them and doesn't accept that cultural identity, and it really fucking shits me so much. And it should be just like a matter of like, I feel like this whole thing, like when you simplify it, again, like you said, this is for the lives of people, like Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's lives that you're talking about. Like, and I don't think people understand the weight of that. Sorry, I have to mention that as well. I mean, a lot of, you must hear all of the misinformation stuff thrown around, right? If you vote no, you're racist. It's a land grab. It's just all of this shit. Like, so can you maybe simplify it? Again, we've already done this in the previous episode, but can you come up with like a way of describing this moment and what it means in a simple form for people to really understand?
Just to emphasise one point too, that the Uluru Statement from the Heart wasn't gifted to politicians or parliament or government. It was gifted to the Australian people to walk with us for a better future. As I said before, we're voting on a principle, so we're voting on what the question is, and it's asking Australians, do you recognise us as the First Peoples, and do you think we deserve to have a voice? Plain and simple. We're not voting on detail. The detail is there is design principles, as I call him Senator Briggs, but Briggs because of his Instagram name. But as he said, just Google it. Like, just Google it. It's not that hard. And that really deadly show that the video that they did. But it's there. It's gifted to the Australian people, and it's issued to them because we have hope in the Australian people. We're 3% of the population, but we need the 97% to walk with us, and we believe that Australians are good people. We are good people. We have the longest surviving culture in the world, and that's something to be proud of. And media does portray us as to be criminal and, you know, we do all this bad stuff, but we're not bad people either. We just want to say in the matters that affect us, and that's what it comes down to. It's ensuring that we have a seat at the table and we have a say relating to the matters that affect us. And that is not hard to understand. As Bridget said, internationally, it does work. A voice at the table does work. Once you have First Nations people at the table, shit gets done and shit happens. And that's plain and simple. And I don't know why it's so hard to, you know, understand that. I think it's hard when, you know, the No Camp has two black, you know, Aboriginal people leading it. It is hard because then people are like, oh, not all First Nations people agree, but that's not true. You know, you're listening to politicians and their priority is their party. Their political party. You know, the second it comes for the First Nations issues, because at the end of the day, once they have to either get re-elected, they're elected by their electorates. So, you know, the people in their electorate. And people need to understand that, you know, we don't have a voice at the table. We don't have any sort of representation, and representation is key. We should have people at the table, community leaders at the table from grassroots community that have dealt with all these issues on the ground. So the details out there, people just need to Google it. And just remembering that we're voting on whether we should have a voice in our country or not. I think B might.
It's very simple, right?
Mike can go more simple than that. But.
I think that's the other thing to remember, though, as well, that whilst the Uluru Statement calls for reforms, it's also about like a bigger picture. It's about getting to a point of peace, but with justice as well, and doing that by First Nations people and the rest of Australia working together. Like, we can't do it by ourselves. We're only less than 3% of the population. Like, we hold no power when it comes to numbers. And that's another key point, I think, especially after what
Do you think that's why people are scared? And do you think that's why some First Nations people are sort of not rejecting, but do you think that's why some people are no for if they're First Nations, like because they're kind of a little bit scared, they feel like they're kind of giving up their power or their sovereignty in that sense? That's
a question and a piece of misinformation that's been out there right from the very beginning, that constitutional recognition or the voice referendum being successful will impact our First Nations sovereignty or will cede our First Nations sovereignty, but that's just not legally true. This referendum can't do that. And I'm still on TikTok literally posting that answer into my comments like daily. And it's a fair, you know, when it comes to First Nations peoples in our communities, of course we have distrust of the government. That is totally valid. But the information and making sure that you make a informed decision based on factual information is equally important. You know, that's what the No campaign have been playing on, is the scaremongering. And it's really disappointing because you can disagree. That there's nothing wrong with having different views or voting yes or voting no for different reasons, as long as it's based on fact. And that's been something that's been really disappointing throughout this campaign to the referendum, because there's no safeguards in place. Even the pamphlet, there was no requirement for that to be fact checked. It just blows my mind that we're in 2023 and those processes aren't in place to protect particularly First Nations peoples, our physical and our mental health, when we are literally on show for the rest of the nation through this referendum. We know that it will make, you know, very significant change, but it hasn't been you know, we need to be honest that it's had a huge impact on our communities as well, because particularly the conversations and, you know, the really disgusting comments that go around.
Yes. Yeah. And I just quickly want to mention too that, you know, obviously, as B said, we don't trust government either, but we have to work in the Western world and the Western society. We've got to work some way and strategically how we can make change within our communities. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to put something on the table where we can say, hey, can we have a voice? That's so hard. But even then too, like in our, we do a lot of briefing sessions. We've been doing them since Albo announced we're going to a referendum. But it was also talking about the civics education of how our democracy works and how our parliament, how politicians, how everything works within Australia is so key, because not a lot of people know that we do have a constitution. And even bringing it up, this is what one of our team members, he actually carries it in his bag. It's kind of nerdy, but cool. So yeah, just knowing that we have a constitution and knowing what the details that's going into the constitution, like some people don't know that. So, explaining that, and, there are valid questions out there, but as B said, you need to make an informed and conscious decision. You can't make a decision based on blatant lies that, have been out there. And, saying that the biggest thing is that the voice is divisive. If anything, it's bringing us together, and it's dealing with the unfinished business. So, yeah.
It's like, it's so daunting to think about where we're going to be in a week's time, right? Like, oh gosh, it makes me nervous even having this conversation. But we are so grateful to have you on our podcast, and thank you so much for all the work that you've done and that you will continue to do. You represent such an important part of our community, and whether we get it or not, our community is our most important priority, right? Like, we are blackfellas before any sort of constitutional recognition. And I've seen across the board that even though I have really not close friends, but I have people in my circle who definitely are a no vote, blackfellas. And I just, want to remind our community that no matter what we vote and right on that day, that we need to stick together as mob, because what we have as part of our culture is community, and that's the most powerful thing.
Yeah, and your voices are just so valued, and your strength in this time as well, both you, Allira, and Bridget. I mean, I've seen it, I've heard it, and I just am so glad that you even gave us the time to even come and chat. And I think, from this chat, you can just see it's very simple. You guys are very informative. It's not as hard as what people make out to be. I've had people listen to a podcast and they had no information about the vote. And then after listening, we're able to actually understand and know which side they're standing on. And I think that's why we do this, is to teach and educate people if they have no knowledge or understanding. And so I wanted to thank you for taking the time out to do this as well. And fingers crossed, I feel like we're all around this.
Yeah, I mean, we're very, very hopeful though, regardless of how we're feeling right now. We're very, very, very hopeful, and we have hope in the Australian people and the future of the generations as well. So I think, we've kept the whole. Prof is really into Tom Brady, so we've kept that Tom Brady mentality, like ignore all the white noise, just keep going, we will win. So we just got to keep that positive mentality and just, do it for our little jarjums, our little young ones that we, want to stay strong for, and that's what we got to do. So we have that. We're here creating content, wanting to start a yarn. A lot of all of our, resources are on our website, ulurustatement.org. Everything's there. Everything is accessible and available for people to make an informed and conscious decision. And that's all we ask Australians to do, is just do that based on the factual information that you learn.
Yeah. Can I ask for just quickly before you jump off, is for your top 3 tips within the 5 days, obviously ahead of the referendum, to do? Top 3 things.
I think one is follow us on social media, at Uluru Statement. And then 2, go onto our website, www.ulurustatement.org. All the resources are on there, factual resources too. And 3, have a conversation. Have a conversation with 5 or 10 people about the Uluru Statement from the Heart, voice to Parliament, and how it will make change within our communities, and weigh up the pros and cons. I feel like there's a lot of pros, but I'm just being biased. But yeah, this is for the nation, and to kind of rewrite our history, and get to October 15th, and hope that our children get a voice and representation in their own country, and a rightful place in their own country.
There you go.
Do you mob know when we will find out the answer? Is it the 15th or is it the night of the 14th?
It depends how long it takes them to count the votes
Count.
because of the complexity around it having to be a double majority, so a majority of Australians, so 50% plus one vote, as well as at least 4 of the 6 states have to be a majority vote as well. There's been a lot of postal votes, but it could take days.
So if it's a landslide, it can be announced that day.
Yeah.
If not, then they'll take, I think it's like a 13-day time frame. And I learned this on ABC. I never thought I'd be watching ABC in my lifetime or my career,
It's like
but
on your TV all
it's
day.
always on my TV. But yeah, there's like a 13-day time frame. So, and then they have to announce the date. Oh, sorry, announce the results.
Okay, I believe in the power of manifestation, so I believe that this nation will say yes. I think we can hope. I think hope goes a long way, especially we've known in times of crisis that hope is all that we can hold on to. Okay, just as a lighthearted question, and this is also for you too, Matty, like if that is a yes vote, what is the first thing that you're going to be doing?
Well, I've already booked a ticket to go home the Sunday to be on the river with my dad on Sunday. So I'm going to be with Mob and probably fishing on the river and just having a catch up with my family, whether it's a yes or a no. I just want to be with them.
Very wholesome. I was going to say drink.
Amen.
Only because we've been working on this for like so long and we have not had a break. And but I know it probably won't be the day after, but I'm definitely booking a holiday to go travel overseas somewhere and just have time for me, because I think work has been life at the moment. And it's, we've worked so hard, and I think our team always says we don't want to regret anything when we get to referendum day. So right now I don't regret anything. As Brooke, you've said, we all have hope, and we're voting on love and equality, and that's what it is. So big holiday for me. That's why.
Oh, deadly.
I want to book a holiday too. I still haven't. I keep telling people that I will. But I just want to spend time with family because it's been a little bit of a sacrifice in terms of time with family over the last year or so, which we all experience in the team. But yeah, I'll just be hugging my baby so tight.
That's so beautiful. Oh, thanks so much, guys. Oh, me as well.
Yeah,
I'll
thank
probably
you.
be getting tattooed. Yes.
Oh my
God.
On your arsehole.
It's got to sit there.
I'll either get October 14th, 2023 tagged on my ass or somewhere like where no one can see it, just as a reminder. Like,
Oh my God.
but who knows?
A no could go well with your asshole too. N-O.
In the right moment.
We should get our team to do that. Matching tattoos.
Maybe I'll get my first one.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming on and taking the time.
Love you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Love you.
Okay, well, I know I was saying before this episode, Matty, that, you have to be, respectful of different opinions and, different viewpoints. I get that. But sometimes you can just say, nah, see you later, and you can break up with your barista because there are no vote.
Oh, so you're telling me that you broke up with your barista?
Yeah, we're done.
Oh my God.
Farewell,
We need
au
a whole
revoir.
episode to unpack that. Let's mob better tune in next week, because we are definitely unpacking that.
We're coming back to it. All right, well, that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for listening to Not So PG. If you love us, leave us a 5-star rating and a little review.
If you want to tell us something, follow us on social media and slide into the DMs. Brooke's handle is @Brooke.Lurton. Mine is @It'sMattyMills. And you can follow us all over at Nova Podcasts Official. Bye.
Bye. But yes.